Hello, welcome to the much awaited transit of Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. I won't say whether the transit will be good or bad. How will it be for whom? It depends on Jupiter's house. Which house does Jupiter move through entering Taurus? Where does Taurus fall? Jupiter in Taurus. Which house? D9 marks. House Lord. Taurus in your chart. Jupiter's marks in D9. Jupiter's marks in D9 chart. Which house Lord gave them? Jupiter's placement in house or lord, Jupiter's self-feeling, Taurus's enemy, performance, ensure no fiction. Taurus is their enemy. Jupiter's transit varies, results. Jupiter's mid-year transit varies results. Jupiter's transit causes events. When will it happen? But one thing is certain, there will be event. Manifestations between the transits of Jupiter and Saturn, good or bad. There will be an event, but exactly when will that event happen? For that, we should also look at Jupiter's transit from the D9 chart. Just as we look at the sign-based dashas, we should also examine the transits through the sign-based. Navamsa, let's talk about this. So basically how thoroughly, profoundly, and deeply it means to see if Jupiter can perform any event, examine Jupiter's D9 transit placement. The Amsha transit aligns with event timing. Jupiter and Saturn connect with my ninth house or its lord. Amsha transit aligns with event timing. Jupiter and Saturn connect with my ninth house, expecting events. Jupiter has connected with my ninth house, expecting events related to father, higher education, and travel. This occurs when the same relationship forms in the D9 chart. So, I'm expecting that there should be some events related to father, higher education, and travel. That will exactly happen. When the same combination or relationship is also formed in the D9 chart, we are trying to narrow down the probability of the event. When Jupiter enters Taurus, we will consider that all the planets sitting in Taurus are activated. Wherever Taurus is placed, in whichever house it is located, Jupiter has activated it. Not only does Jupiter impact the sign of Taurus, but it also affects the trine of Taurus, including the signs of Capricorn and the planets sitting in those signs. And it is mostly believed that the outcome of Jupiter will be positive because they are the most beneficial planet. We will vary the results according to what Jupiter's lordship is for us. 9 because it's a very important chart without which the D1 chart is not considered complete. Therefore, the transit should also be looked at in the D9 chart. We should look, but how should we look? When Jupiter enters Taurus, it will be in the first Navamsa of Taurus, and the calculation for 2 to 6 to 10 is seen in the 10th house. Capricorn is such that it means they will be in the Navamsa of Capricorn. Now I need to superimpose the Jupiter transit that is happening in the Capricorn sign of the D9 chart. Wherever the D1 chart has an African sign, Jupiter's impact is also there. I'm saying that otherwise too. I'm talking about Taurus and how it is impacting the planets sitting in its train. When will the difference be created? While transiting from the second house starting from 0. The first Navamsa Nand is 320. From 320 to 640 is the second Navamsa, which means that when Jupiter is between 320 and 640, it will transit through the sign of Aquarius in the D9 chart. I need to see which house the sign of Aquarius falls into in my D1 chart, how the planets are positioned there and which planets are sitting in its trine. Jupiter will activate them too. As I mentioned earlier, the trine remains the same while entering Taurus because which starting point is happening. But as Jupiter moves forward after Aquarius and Pisces, the trine associated with Jupiter will change This technique helps with our accuracy of analysis and event probability. How do they understand that from one example chart? The first chart is the main chart. The second chart is the transit chart of November 17th, 2019, when their marriage took place during the Saturn main and Saturn sub period. What I need what I need is for Saturn, my MD Lord, Jupiter, which I will also look at in transit, and Rahu Ketu to create an impact in my seventh house or through transit so they can provide the probability of events. If you look at the transits, Jupiter, Saturn, and Ketu are all transiting through the seventh house. So I would definitely say that as soon as Jupiter enters Taurus, there could be a probability of marriage. But we were talking about where we need to look at Jupiter's transit. Look at D9. When Jupiter has entered Sagittarius and is in the first Navamsa, this means that it is transiting through Aries in the D9. We can also see that it is transiting from Aries that day or during that time period. Now, where does Venus read in my chart? It falls in the 11th house. It links to the 7th house. Jupiter in Taurus ends this. So, marriage likelihood rises. Jupiter in Taurus won't link to the 7th house or its lord. Marriage chances rise during its first or third Navamsa transit. Jupiter's transit in the first or third Navamsa boosts marriage chances. When Jupiter's transit is in the first Navamsa or the third Navamsa, not just Jupiter, we also look at Saturn's transit. Saturn's transit was moving from the 7th Navamsa, and we start the calculation from 1 to 5-9. This means that Saturn will be transiting in Libra at that time. Let's see. It wants Saturn D Libra making transit. So if I superimpose it on my boss's chart, then my 5th house is in my D9. Because I need to superimpose and see where to look, I need to look in the D1. They were transiting in the sign of Libra. They were forming a relationship with both my 7th house and the Lord of the 7th. Where are we looking at Saturn's transits? We're looking in the D9 and we're superimposing it in the D1. And we're checking which houses in the D1 it is forming relationships with. Now, there will be confusion because we thought this transit would be good or bad, so they formed relationships with good houses or the house lord. But when it came to the D9, their transit wasn't that great, or they formed a relationship with the 8th house lord. What say? Understand Jupiter's transit, class marks, and satisfaction. Check if D1 transit associations form in D9. D9 events may yield better results. Don't fear 8th house transit. It doesn't mean bad things. Then, the second thing we need to look at is whether the associations being formed in the D1 by transit are also being formed in the D9. Those events will be able to provide more fruitful results that are not happening in the D1 but are happening in the D9. So there's no need to be afraid, as it's now in or related to the 8th house, nothing bad is going to happen. I hope this little technique, where we look at Jupiter's transit, not just in the D1, but also from the D9, helps us move towards the certainty of an event. I hope you liked it. Thank you so much.